welcome to my Everything You Need to Know About the NBA Bubble video. In this, I will try to explain to you the who, what, where, when, and why of the NBA Bubble and what to expect. So as we know, the NBA season was discontinued on March 13th due to the coronavirus pandemic, and ever since then, the NBA has been shuffling around trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do, and I think the majority of you know that they have settled on playing the rest of their regular season and postseason at Disney World in Orlando, Florida. So, that's where Disney World is. It's in the middle of Florida. Why they picked this location? That is because they can quarantine all their players in a specific and central area and control who comes in and who comes out. We'll get to this later, but they plan to hold under 1,600 people within they're calling it a campus, but it is more of a bubble because there's nobody who can leave and nobody who can enter. And the reason for that is they don't want anybody to get the virus, period. Which is pretty much inevitable, but they're trying to be as cautious as possible because that could be disastrously toward anybody's playoff season and at the end of the day their health, which is much more important. So this is what the Wild World of Sports complex looks like, that all the games will be televised by ESPN and TNT right here at this facility. This, I do not believe, is obviously where the players will be staying because there's no hotel rooms, but this is where the basketball will be happening. This was approved by every single owner except the Portland Trail Blazers owner. There were a few different outlooks on how exactly they should continue the season, whether they should do a group stage, just like the FIFA World Cup does, how many teams should get in, if they should just go straight with the 16, if they should only do the top 4 in each conference making the playoffs. So there was a lot of disagreement. I know the Atlanta Hawks disagreed vehemently with the format because they wanted to make the playoffs. But at the end of the day, every owner knew that not everybody was going to be on the same page 100%. So they knew that they needed to just agree to disagree and get the season going, something unlike baseball's doing right now. And let's get down to the meat and potatoes of it all. Enough fluffs. Okay, so we have 22 teams entering. We have 13 from the Western Conference and 9 from the Eastern Conference. Why is there a different number for each conference? This is because every team still playing right now has a chance at the playoffs. Whether they have a good chance, that's subjective. So a team like the Suns or a team like the Spurs, who are 6 games, I believe, 5 or 6 games behind the 8 seed, don't have that much of a chance, but they do have a chance if they can find lightning in a bottle somehow, and that's why they're playing. The 9 seed in the East is the Wizards, and the 8 seed is the Magic. Why this is important? Only 8 teams make the playoffs. Okay, and there will be a play-in game between the 8 and 9 seed, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but just know right now 22 teams are going to Disney World, okay? So just like the Super Bowl when they say they're going to Disney World, we have 22 teams saying that. So these are what the standings currently look like, and this is all of the teams making it. So we have the 8 teams who are in the playoffs all year, and we have the Trailblazers, Pelicans, Kings, Spurs, and Suns at the bottom of the conference currently out, as well as the Wizards. So those are the teams on the outside looking in. But each team does have a chance within those 8 regular season games, which I don't know if I've mentioned, but they're playing 8 regular season games to determine the playoffs seeding. Okay? This is important, but we'll get to that. So 8 regular season games highlighted there, and then they go to the playoffs. So those 8 games are to determine the playoff seeding. This is the current playoff standings, okay? So right now the Grizzlies are in, the Magic are in. Right now the Magic would not have to play a play-in game because they are more than 5 games ahead of the Wizards. To play in the play-in game, you need to be within 5 games of the 8 seed and also be the 9 seed. And if you didn't think that was difficult enough, you have to beat the 8 seed twice to make the playoffs without losing once. If you lose once, you're done. The 8 seed makes it. But there is a play-in game. And if you don't think that's tough enough, then you have to go into the playoffs and play the number 1 seed, which is going to be the Lakers or the Bucks. The Lakers have basically clinched the 1 seed, and so have the Bucks. They both are about 7 games up. They need to win once to clinch. So they're going to be resting quite a bit, I would imagine, in this NBA bubble. So the 9 seed has an incredibly tough road to the playoffs. It would take the Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic a lot to not make the playoffs, in my opinion. So what are these 8 games going to be? Who are they going to be against? Obviously, you can't continue the NBA schedule as it was when the season ended because there's more than 8 games, and not all teams are making the playoffs. So let's say next up on the schedule, you are going to play the Bulls. You can't play the Bulls because they're not going to Disney World. So who are you going to play? So according to Vincent Goodwill, this is the only research that I have on this topic. You just play whoever is next on your schedule. So let's say you're the Denver Nuggets and you have the Spurs, then you have the Pistons, then you have the Suns, then you have the Lakers. You would not play the Bulls, or you would not play the Pistons in that scenario. You would jump over them and go straight to the Suns. I believe the Suns were the second team I talked about. So that's how they plan to do it. So it's the luck of the draw. Basically, who you have left minus the teams not there within. So what your next 8 games are. I know we're in deep right now, but that's who you play. But there's a wrinkle in that because not everybody's going to play the same teams. Some teams are going to run out of teams to play, and it's not going to line up. So one team's going to finish their 8 games, and then another team who had a bunch of teams not at the bubble still not playing, they will only have played 5 games. So the NBA still needs to figure out how exactly they're going to fairly schedule the rest of these bubble games. And here we have some more exact dates, okay? So thank you for staying with me. I know we're in deep right now, but I think all of it's pretty relevant and pertinent. So training camp July 9th. All the players I hear show up to Disney World July 7th. The season goes from not July 31st, they actually shift that back to July 30th now, and it goes until October 12th, which this is going to be interesting because the NBA is going to be competing directly with the NFL in the prime of their playoffs. So all those Eastern West Conference finals and the finals will be going head-to-head against NFL, presumably that the NFL starts on time. October 12th is the latest that the NBA 2020 regular season could go, and that is the same night that the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs play a Thursday night football game. So that could be going on during a Game 7, which would be an anomaly in NBA and NFL history. The draft lottery would be August 25th. Every single team is already cemented in their draft lottery, even those Suns and Spurs and Wizards teams that are in the bottom 10 of the league. Their records are frozen, which is another slide we'll talk about. But all of the NBA lottery is cemented right now. The regular season records are done. So everybody's odds are in right now. NBA draft is October 15th, which is, they're really packing this in considering that the season ends October 12th. Might end a little sooner depending on how long the finals go. And free agency starts 3 days later. So they got a lot to catch up on, and hopefully they can, depending on how difficult the virus becomes this fall. And then they plan gearing on up November 10th. Training camp, I mean, that could only give the team who made the finals 1 month off from basketball. I mean, I know they've had 3 months off this year, but that's a very quick turnaround. And the season's starting December 1st. I do not think that's going to stand. I think it's going to be Christmas, and they're going to start training camp on Thanksgiving. That's what I'm hearing. The players aren't going to put up with such a quick turnaround. But we'll just have to wait and see. So like I say, all teams' records are frozen, so this de-incentivizes any bad teams from tanking. So let's say you're the Wizards, and you know you have like a 1% chance to make the playoffs. Not only do you have to be within 5 games, you also have to beat the team twice just to lose to the Bucks in like 5 games. Why would you even want to have all your players show up and try to win? So to try to combat that, they have made it so all the records are frozen. So the Wizards' record right now is 24-40. That's not going to change. Even if they lose all 8 games in the bubble, they are going to be 24-40. So their lottery percentage chance stays the same. Let's see. Like I say, they're trying to start it next year, November 10th, and the season December 1st. I doubt it. Another contentious thing, a thing of note, is they are trying to have coaches over 65 years old wear masks, which I'm hearing is not going to fly considering that's ageist. And either every coach has to do it or no coach has to do it. Imagine you're Mike D'Antoni and you're the only one wearing a mask. That could even be a competitive disadvantage for you if you're playing, let's say, the Denver Nuggets in a playoff series where Mike Malone doesn't have to wear a mask. So either way, I am almost 100% sure either all the coaches will be wearing masks or no coaches will be wearing masks. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but all these games, regular season and postseason, will be broadcast on ESPN and TNT. So they're trying. Another thing of note is they're keeping 1,600 people or less in the bubble, and they're doing that so they can regulate as much of interactions as possible with all these players. Okay, so all the people in will be players, limited personnel, and limited family personnel of the players. So we'll talk about that. There is no chance that any of these players will be roaming Disney World, riding rides, eating food at concessions, leaving the bubble, because that makes them susceptible to getting the virus, and that's exactly what the NBA doesn't want to have. So never will you be, if you choose to go to Disney World just because you want to meet Anthony Davis or Luka Doncic, you have zero chance of Splash Mountain seeing this picture happen. I'm sorry. Okay, another thing of note, we know that the Nets are the 8th seed. Well, they're the 7th seed in the East, and they would play the Raptors. And a lot of their percentage chance, or their odds to win the finals, went from 300 to 1 to 60 to 1 once the pandemic happened, because people speculated that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving would both be healthy and playing for this team, making them finals contenders. Well, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen considering Kevin Durant's season is over. He's saying 2020 is a wrap. 2019-2020 is a wrap for both him and Kyrie Irving. So you may be asking, are these guys at least going to be showing up and supporting their team? The answer to that question is no, considering the NBA is trying to keep as limited people as possible in the bubble so they can regulate as much as they can. Let's see, what else do we got? Some players are getting a little antsy about returning. So let's say you're Boban of the Mavericks and you say, I don't want to come back. What if I get coronavirus and maybe I don't want to leave my family either? And maybe I want to help the Black Lives Matter movement continue and I can't do that as well from the bubble. So a lot of players are raising those concerns. Specifically, JaVale McGee has been the most adamant about it, saying that he does not want, he's very, he's touchy about going back, considering he has asthma and is susceptible to the coronavirus. Also, he doesn't want to leave his family, and he has a bunch of other concerns, mainly about just not being able to leave. He doesn't want to be trapped, and a lot of players I'm hearing feel that. But I bring this slide up next. The Players Union has already agreed to the 22-team format. So the only way I can see the season not happening because players are dropping out is whether the majority of players drop out, which I do not think is likely whatsoever. I think maybe 1 to 5 players don't show up. Maybe more if their teams are out of the playoffs, but playoff teams, players, the high majority will be back. And no way this man is going to let the season not continue considering they're the 1 seed. This is LeBron's last chance. Some timetables, 22 teams in Orlando, but after those 8 playoff games, or those 8 regular season games, which will happen in 16 days, we will lose 6 more teams. And then after the first and second round, which will take about 35 days with the regular season, we'll be down to 8 teams, and then after that series we'll be down to 4. So this is exactly what the NBA wants, is perfect playoffs, because they have fewer and fewer people to regulate as the season goes on and make tests. So what specifics do we need to know about the playoffs? playoffs. So 8 games based on schedule. As you know, there's a potential schedule right there for, let's say, a team like the Nuggets or the Clippers. That's the first bullet. We talked a little bit about the conferences and who's making the playoffs. Specifically, the top 9 teams in each conference make the playoffs. As long as the 9 seed is within 5 games of the 8 seed. We've talked about that. That's sort of the Zion rule. They want to see Zion in the playoffs because that will drive viewership. That's why I have Zion there. The playoffs between the 8 and 9 seed decide who advances to play the number 1 seed. Now, I put 2 asterisks there because the 9 seed needs to win 2 games and be within 5 games. We already talked about how complicated it is and how much of a tough road the 9 seed has. But they need to win 2 games, whereas the 8 seed only needs to beat them once to advance. So that's sort of your reward for being a higher seed. So right now the 8 seed is the Magic and the Grizzlies in each conference. And after that, it's business as usual, as much as business as usual can be for a playoff in Disney World. Could you imagine I told you back on Christmas that the NBA playoffs would be played solely at Disney World and none of the players would be allowed to escape? Strange times, man. So, business as usual, 7-game playoff series for each and every series after these 2 playing games for each conference, if they happen. So, I suppose we've covered it all. Right? So, if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments. But I think I basically went into detail and summarized everything as much as I could for you guys. So yeah, other than that, if you want me to do a prediction video on how I think the playoffs will shake out, leave a like, let me know. But as I say, I hope this answered all your questions, and I thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to watching a lot of NBA basketball come August and September, and aside from that, I will see you guys next time.